You've been lied to your entire life about heartburn. Yes, lied to. What if I told you that the burning sensation in your chest, the acid reflux that keeps you awake at night, the indigestion that ruins your meals, are not caused by too much stomach acid at all? That the very pills and antacids you've been swallowing for years might actually be making you sicker. This isn't some fringe theory, it's a truth that has been hidden in plain sight. For decades, we've been taught to fear stomach acid, to suppress it, to kill it. But what if the real danger comes from not having enough? Imagine that millions of people are suffering, not because their stomachs are too acidic, but because they're not acidic enough. I know that sounds insane, even impossible, but stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll see why the mainstream story about acid reflux is completely upside down and why the real solution is nothing like what you've been told. Welcome to the Nutrition Institute, where we uncover the truths about your health that no one else dares to talk about. If you find this eye-opening, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the powerful insights we have coming next. For years, I lived under the same belief that millions of Americans still hold today. Heartburn and acid reflux are caused by too much stomach acid. It sounds so logical, doesn't it? Acid burns. So if your chest is burning, the problem must be an excess of acid. And the solution, we're told, is simple: neutralize the acid with antacids, or block it with stronger prescription drugs. End of story. That's the narrative I bought into. Every time I felt that fiery sensation creeping up my esophagus, I'd pop a Tums or reach for a bottle of antacids. And at first, it seemed to work. The pain faded, the burn disappeared, and I felt relief, temporary relief. But here's the thing no one tells you. That relief comes at a cost, and the cost only grows the longer you rely on it. Over time, I began to notice new problems creeping in. My digestion felt sluggish. Meals that used to leave me energized instead left me bloated and uncomfortable. I felt fatigued, like my body wasn't absorbing the nutrients it needed. And the more I leaned on antacids, the worse it all seemed to get. I was stuck in a loop, and I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until I stumbled across research outside of the mainstream narrative that the shocking truth hit me. Most cases of heartburn and reflux are not caused by too much stomach acid. They're caused by too little. I know how crazy that sounds at first. How could a burning sensation mean you don't have enough acid? It feels completely backward. But once you start to understand how the stomach is designed to work, the puzzle pieces snap into place. Here's what I learned. Your stomach is supposed to be extremely acidic. I'm talking about a pH between 1 and 3 that's in the same range as battery acid. It sounds dangerous, but this acidity is what keeps you alive and healthy. It's strong enough to break down tough proteins like meat. It's strong enough to kill harmful microbes before they can wreak havoc in your intestines. And it's essential for unlocking vital nutrients like vitamin B12, iron, and magnesium. But that's not all. The acidity in your stomach acts like a master switch for the rest of your digestive system. When your stomach is properly acidic, it signals your pancreas to release enzymes, your gallbladder to release bile, and your small intestine to prepare for the incoming food. In other words, acid isn't the problem, it's the foundation of digestion. Now here's where the lie comes in. When you don't have enough acid, food doesn't break down the way it should. Proteins sit in your stomach longer, fermenting instead of digesting. Microbes that should have been killed survive and multiply. This fermentation creates gas, which pushes against the valve at the top of your stomach. That pressure forces acid, weak acid, not strong enough to do its job, up into your esophagus. And what do you feel? Heartburn. So the burning isn't a sign that your stomach is too acidic. It's a sign that your stomach isn't acidic enough to keep digestion moving properly. That weak acid lingers, gases build up, and suddenly you've got reflux. Think about how twisted this is. You feel the burn, you assume it's from excess acid, you take an antacid, and temporarily the burning sensation goes away. But what have you just done? You've reduced your stomach acid even further. You've made it harder for your body to digest protein, harder to absorb nutrients, harder to kill harmful microbes. Over time, this doesn't just fail to fix the problem, it makes the root cause worse. That was the aha moment for me. I realized that my so-called solution was actually fueling the cycle of misery. By suppressing acid, I was setting myself up for more reflux, more discomfort, and more health issues down the road. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like being told the earth is round after believing it was flat your entire life. The old story no longer makes sense, and the consequences of this widespread misunderstanding are massive. Millions of people are stuck on antacids or prescription drugs for years, sometimes decades, because no one has told them the truth. Meanwhile, their bodies are starved of nutrients, their bones weaken, their kidneys suffer, and their digestive health spirals, all because of a simple but powerful lie. That heartburn means you have too much acid. For me, this was more than just an interesting medical fact. It was personal. It explained why I never felt truly better even after years of following the conventional advice. It explained why my energy was low, why my digestion was off, why I couldn't shake that constant feeling of discomfort. I wasn't broken. My body wasn't malfunctioning. It was just missing the acid. It needed to do its job, and that realization changed everything. It opened the door to new solutions, real solutions that address the root cause instead of masking the symptoms. It made me question everything I thought I knew about health and medicine, and it made me want to share this truth with as many people as possible, because if you're stuck in the same loop I was, you deserve to know there's another way. So the next time you feel that burn in your chest, I want you to pause before you reach for the antacids. Ask yourself, could this really be a sign of too little acid? Not too much. Because once you start asking that question, you may find the entire story you've been told about heartburn unravels, and in that unraveling, there's hope for better digestion, for stronger health, and for freedom from the cycle that has trapped so many of us for far too long. When I first started struggling with heartburn, I thought I had found my lifeline in those little chalky tablets and over the counter bottles of antacids. They were everywhere at the pharmacy, in my friends' medicine cabinets, even tucked in my parents' kitchen drawer. Heartburn was so common, and antacids were the quick fix everyone trusted. Take one. Feel better. Move on. Simple. But over time, I began to realize that simple came with strings attached. What no one tells you, what I had to learn the hard way, is that these drugs are designed for short-term use only. Read the back of the box, and you'll see the warning. Do not use for more than 2 weeks. Yet how many people actually stop after 2 weeks? I certainly didn't. Most people I know didn't either. Here's why heartburn doesn't magically disappear after 14 days. If you don't fix the root cause, the symptoms keep coming back. So you keep taking the pills day after day, week after week, year after year, and all the while, you think you're treating the problem, but in reality, you're digging yourself into a deeper hole. At first, it seems harmless. The burn fades, you can enjoy your meal, and life goes on, but gradually, the silent damage builds. Antacids don't just neutralize excess acid, they suppress the very stomach acid your body needs to function. That means you're interfering with digestion, blocking nutrient absorption, and opening the door to all kinds of deficiencies. I started reading about the long-term risks, and what I found was disturbing. Low magnesium levels, which can cause muscle weakness and irregular heartbeats, bone loss and fractures because calcium isn't absorbed properly, kidney damage, even increased risk of certain infections. Since acid is one of your body's first lines of defense against harmful bacteria, all of this from the safe little tablets I thought were helping me. And that's just the beginning. When over-the-counter options don't cut it anymore, doctors often prescribe stronger drugs called proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs. These are the heavy hitters designed to shut down acid production more completely. They're meant to be used for a limited time, usually 4 to 8 weeks. But again, how many people actually stop? For a lot of patients, PPIs become a lifelong prescription. I've spoken with people who've been on PPIs for 10, 15, even 20 years. Their doctors just keep refilling the prescription. But here's the catch. The underlying issue never really goes away. You might suppress the symptoms, but the root cause, the lack of strong stomach acid, remains unaddressed. And so patients end up trapped in a vicious cycle. It goes something like this. You start with mild discomfort. You take an antacid, and it helps. Over time, the relief isn't enough, so you move on to stronger drugs. At first, those work too, but then the symptoms creep back, so the dosage gets increased higher and higher, until eventually, nothing seems to work. That's when doctors start talking about surgery. Think about that for a moment. From a simple, manageable issue to invasive surgery, all because the real problem was never addressed. It's a classic case of treating the symptom while ignoring the cause. I couldn't help but wonder, is this by design? Are we really supposed to believe that a system that leaves millions of people dependent on pills for life is the best solution? Or is it possible that the pharmaceutical industry benefits far more from lifelong customers than from actually solving the problem? Now, I'm not here to spin conspiracy theories, but I do know this. The standard treatment for heartburn doesn't cure it. It manages symptoms while quietly creating new health problems in the background. And the more you depend on these drugs, the harder it becomes to break free. I've seen friends fall into this cycle. One close friend of mine started on antacids in his 20s. By his 30s, he was on daily PPIs. By his 40s, he was experiencing bone density loss and constant fatigue. When he finally asked his doctor if he could come off the medication, the answer was, not recommended. You need it. Imagine hearing that your body is now permanently dependent on a drug that was only supposed to be temporary. That realization shook me. I didn't want to become another statistic, another person trapped in the endless loop. And once I understood how the system worked, I saw the pattern everywhere. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just my friend. It was millions of people following the same path, all because of a lie about stomach acid. And here's the cruel irony. By suppressing acid, you're actually making the underlying issue worse. The weaker your stomach acid becomes, the less effectively your body digests food, the more pressure builds in your stomach, the more reflux you experience, which makes you think you need even more medication. It's like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. You get a momentary distraction from the flames, but the fire only grows stronger. So what's the alternative? For me, it started with asking a simple but powerful question. What if the mainstream advice is wrong? What if, instead of fighting to suppress acid, the real path to healing is to restore it? That shift in perspective was liberating. It turned heartburn from an unsolvable curse into a solvable puzzle. It made me realize that the body isn't broken, it's just out of balance. And once you understand that, you can begin to rebuild your health from the ground up instead of chasing symptom relief forever. Looking back now, I see my old reliance on antacids and PPIs as a trap, not an intentional one, perhaps, but a trap nonetheless. And escaping that trap required more than just new supplements or lifestyle changes. It required a new way of thinking, a willingness to question what I had been told, and to explore solutions that actually address the root cause. Because here's the truth. No one deserves to spend their life chained to a bottle of pills. Heartburn isn't a destiny. It's a symptom. And when you deal with it at the root, when you stop silencing your stomach acid and start restoring it, you can finally break free from the endless loop. After years of chasing quick fixes and falling deeper into the trap of antacids, I reached a point where I had to ask myself, is this really the only way? Was I doomed to a lifetime of pills and recurring discomfort? Or was there another path, one that didn't just silence symptoms, but actually restored my digestive health? That question led me down a road I never expected, a road that challenged everything I thought I knew about heartburn. And what I found was both simple and life-changing. Let's start with something many people have already tried: apple cider vinegar. When I first heard that vinegar might help with heartburn, I thought it sounded ridiculous. Why would adding something acidic solve a problem that feels like too much acid? But after learning that the real issue was too little acid, it suddenly made sense. I gave it a try, just a tablespoon or two, diluted in water before meals, and to my surprise, it worked. The bloating eased, the reflux calmed, and I felt lighter after eating. It wasn't a miracle cure, but it was enough to prove that restoring acidity, not suppressing it, was the right direction. But here's the thing. Apple cider vinegar is more of a bandage than a rebuild. It gives temporary relief and nudges your body toward better digestion, but it doesn't fully restore the stomach acid you need long term. That's where I discovered something far more powerful: beta-ine hydrochloride. Now, this isn't some trendy new supplement. In fact, it has a long history in medicine. Before Tums and proton pump inhibitors ever existed, doctors often used beta-ine hydrochloride to treat digestive problems. Its purpose is straightforward. It helps reacidify the stomach, bringing the pH back down to the level where digestion works as nature intended. When I started using it, I noticed an almost immediate difference. The heaviness after meals began to fade. The bloating decreased. My energy came back because suddenly my body was absorbing nutrients again instead of letting them slip through unused. It was as if I had finally given my stomach the missing tool it needed all along. And here's what makes beta-ine hydrochloride unique. You can actually test your own needs. The process is simple. You take a small dose with a meal, and if you feel fine, you gradually increase until you notice a slight warming sensation in your stomach. That's your body's way of saying, okay, that's enough. Then you scale back to the dose just below that level. It's a personal approach, tailored to your own digestive needs. But supplements alone aren't the full answer. If you really want to rebuild your digestive health, you have to support your body with the raw materials and habits it relies on. And that was the next step in my journey. I began paying attention to nutrients I had overlooked before. Salt, not the processed, bleached kind, but real sea salt. The chloride in sodium chloride is essential for producing hydrochloric acid. Without enough salt, your body simply can't make the acid it needs. Zinc and iodine, these trace minerals, play crucial roles in acid production. Zinc is abundant in foods like seafood and red meat, while iodine is found in shellfish and sea vegetables. For years, I hadn't realized how much my low intake of these foods was working against me. Magnesium and vitamin D. These two work together, not just for bone health, but for stomach acid and immune support. When I boosted both, my digestion improved noticeably. Vitamin B1, this one surprised me. But I learned that deficiencies in B vitamins, especially B1, can interfere with the nervous system that controls the stomach valves. adding nutritional yeast and sunflower seeds made a bigger difference than I expected. And then there was lifestyle. If I'm honest, my old habits weren't doing me any favors. I snacked too often, leaving my digestive system no time to rest. I leaned on processed foods for convenience. My meals were rushed, eaten in front of a screen, instead of mindfully. Changing those habits felt daunting at first, but the payoff was undeniable. I started spacing out my meals, giving my stomach time to fully empty before the next round. This simple shift reduced bloating and reflux dramatically. I also began practicing intermittent fasting, not as a fad, but as a way to give my digestive system the break it desperately needed. And for the first time in years, I felt like my body was working with me, not against me. But what about people who actually have too much acid? It's rare, but it happens usually in cases of gastritis or ulcers. For those situations, the goal isn't to add more acid, but to heal the lining of the stomach. That's where natural remedies like zinc carnosine, mastic gum, and even simple cabbage come into play. Cabbage contains a compound once nicknamed vitamin U for its ulcer healing properties. It sounds old-fashioned, but sometimes the simplest foods hold the most powerful medicine. And then there's H. pylori, the bacteria that thrives when stomach acid is too low. For years, I thought of microbes only as enemies, but the truth is many live harmlessly in our bodies until the environment shifts. When acid levels drop, H. pylori takes advantage, supporting my immune system with vitamin D, probiotics, and broccoli sprouts, which contain sulforaphane that inhibits H. pylori, gave my body the upper hand again. The deeper I went, the more I realized this wasn't just about fixing heartburn. It was about reclaiming the foundation of health. Proper stomach acid doesn't just prevent reflux. It enables every part of digestion to function smoothly. Without it, your entire system is compromised. With it, you thrive. Looking back, the biggest change wasn't just in my stomach. It was in my perspective. I stopped seeing myself as a victim of bad luck or bad genes. I stopped chasing pills that only muted the symptoms. Instead, I started asking, what does my body really need to do its job? And the answer wasn't more suppression, it was restoration. That's the path I want others to see, not a lifetime chained to bottles and prescriptions, but a future where you understand your body's signals and work with them, where you use natural tools, supplements, nutrients, lifestyle shifts, not to mask discomfort, but to rebuild the foundation of health itself. Because at the end of the day, heartburn isn't just about fire in your chest. It's a message, a warning light on the dashboard. And if you listen closely, it's telling you something powerful. Your stomach acid isn't the enemy. It's your ally. And once you restore that ally, the whole story of your health begins to change. Looking back on my journey with heartburn, I can't help but feel a mix of frustration and gratitude. Frustration because I spent years believing a story that was never true, that heartburn comes from too much stomach acid, and that the only way to handle it was to suppress that acid with drugs. Gratitude, because eventually I discovered the truth that set me free. In most cases, the real problem is not enough acid. That realization changed everything. It transformed my understanding of my body, my health, and even the medical system I had trusted for so long. What I once thought was an enemy acid turned out to be my greatest ally, and when I stopped fighting it and started restoring it, my digestion improved. My energy came back, and I finally felt like myself again. Here's the lesson I want to leave with you. Symptoms are not the enemy. They are signals. That burning in your chest, that bloating, that discomfort, it isn't your body betraying you. It's your body trying to tell you something. The tragedy is that most of us are taught to silence those signals. Instead of listening to them, we reach for a pill, and for a moment, the noise stops. But the underlying issue doesn't go away. It only grows louder in the background. When I flipped the script, when I began asking why, instead of just trying to mute the symptoms, I discovered that healing is possible, not overnight, not with one magic supplement, but with a combination of restoring stomach acid, supporting my body with nutrients, and changing the way I eat and live. And here's the most powerful part. This isn't just about digestion. When your body starts absorbing nutrients again, when your immune system is supported, when your gut is balanced, everything improves. Energy, mood, resilience, it all flows from that foundation. So what's the takeaway? Don't accept the old story at face value. Don't assume that pills for life are the only option. Your body is smarter than that. It knows how to heal if you give it the tools. From my perspective, this journey has been humbling. It taught me to question, to research, to take ownership of my health, and it gave me hope that others, maybe even you, can break free from the cycle too. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever struggled with heartburn or reflux? And if so, what's the one thing you've tried that made the biggest difference for you? Share your answer in the comments below. I'd love to learn from your experiences, and I know others watching will too. And if you found this conversation valuable, please consider subscribing to the Nutrition Institute. Your support helps us keep uncovering truths that matter, and it gives us the motivation to bring you more content that can truly change lives. Because the truth is simple. Heartburn doesn't have to own you. Once you understand the real cause, you can take back control, not just of your digestion, but of your health and your life.